Hey there, finance friends. Welcome back. So, we've talked about credit and kind of the big picture foundations of credit. And we've also talked about credit cards. In this lecture video, I want to turn our attention to loans. Now, sometimes you'll hear these referred to as consumer loans. That term is also used. And we know that this is also what we would call closed-end credit. All these terms apply. As a reminder, closed-end credit consumer loans are not credit cards, whereas a credit card can be used in basically any amount up to your credit limit, paid back with a little bit of flexibility. You can pay the full amount, the minimum payment, something in between, and you can just kind of buy when you want to buy and pay when you want to pay. Consumer loans, closed-end credit is much more rigid. These are, in general, so I guess we can ask this, what are some common types? These are loans that you typically get for larger items. Usually they are big consumer goods, things like houses, and that's called a mortgage. That's a home loan. Car loans, sucker's bet. Student loans, sometimes loans for furniture or for things like that. Maybe appliances. You go, you buy a house and you go to Home Depot and you get a loan from Home Depot to buy like the dishwasher and all that other kind of crap. Like they'll have like those things on an installment loan, they'll call that. These are also called installment loans. Probably should have told you that at the beginning. So they're usually used to purchase big ticket items. They're not revolving. Because what it means is, so those are the types of loans. With these loans, how do they work? Well, number one, it's for a fixed amount. With the credit card, you can just sort of buy what you want to buy. Doesn't matter what it costs. You could just charge anywhere from zero up to your credit limit. But, as we said before, these are fixed. So if you're going to buy a house for $100,000, you're going to put down 20%. So you're putting down 20. You're going to borrow 80. That mortgage is for $80,000 to finance that home, right? Like that's the fixed amount. You can't take out more than that and just use the money for other things. It's a fixed amount and it's used for a fixed purpose. The home loan is used for the home. If you decide to take out a car loan, it's going to be in a fixed amount, the amount that the car costs. And it's going to be for one thing, the car. You can't say, well, the car costs 50,000, so I'm going to take an $80,000 car loan and go and buy some other crap. Okay, it's closed-ended. You're taking out a specific loan for a specific purpose in a specific amount to buy the item. Not only that, but here's the critical part, the payment is also set. Whereas with a credit card, we said before, you can charge the minimum, you can pay the balance in, I'm sorry, forgive me, you can pay the minimum due, you can pay the balance in full, you can pay an amount in between, not here. These types of loans typically have very, very set payment schedules. You are going to make set payments on a periodic basis, almost always monthly. And you're going to be paying a certain amount of money every month until that loan gets cleared. Okay? So that's how these things work. Let's talk briefly about the characteristics by which loans differ. So, what are some of the characteristics that define these loans? Well, number one characteristic, does the loan require collateral? I may have spelled that wrong. Collateral. Collateral is basically an item that secures the loan. So here we're asking, is the loan secured or unsecured? A mortgage is a secured loan. Think about a mortgage. You're taking out a loan to buy a house, and the house serves as the collateral for the loan. Think about a car loan. You're taking out a loan to buy a car, and the car is the collateral for the loan. Now, you might be saying, well, Eric, that's pretty obvious. So what? Well, here's the so what. Remember, we said that lenders hate risk. And the riskier something is, the higher the interest rate is. Well, if you think about it, a secured loan, a loan with collateral like a mortgage or a car loan, they're slightly safer for the lender because there's collateral attached, which means that it's a little bit less risky, so the interest rates are lower. And that's a large part of the reason why, for example, mortgage rates and car loan rates are way lower than credit card rates because credit cards are fully unsecured. Like you promise I'll pay you back, but there's nothing underneath it. Okay. So, category number one, characteristic number one is their collateral. Number two, the interest rate, what we've called APR. The interest rate on these loans can either be a fixed interest rate or a variable interest rate. A fixed interest rate means just that. When you first take out the loan, whatever the interest rate is that you sign the loan contract for, that rate stays with the loan forever. These are usually pretty cool ideas because it gives you predictability. If you know how much you borrowed and you know that the interest rate is fixed, you can calculate your payment for the life of the loan. You can calculate your monthly payment for the life of the loan. And then you can plan and you can say, okay, this fits in my budget. It'll never change. On the other hand, some loans have variable interest rates. With a variable interest rate loan, the interest rate can actually adjust during the loan term. And if the interest rate adjusts upward, your payment can adjust upward. So you might say, well, okay, that sounds dangerous. So why do we have them? Well, here's the trade-off. Variable rate loans usually have lower APRs and fixed rate loans have slightly higher APRs. In other words, the interest rate that you will pay on a fixed rate loan is slightly higher than the rate you would pay on a variable. If you think about it, you're paying a slightly higher interest rate, but in exchange, you're getting predictability, stability, and the ability to plan. If you get a variable loan, you'll pay a lower interest rate, but that's just right now. That rate can fluctuate, and if the economy changes against you, it can actually kind of hurt you if it goes too high. So these loans vary by collateral needs, by interest rate. They vary based on the payment arrangement. In other words, how are these things paid off? Actually, most of these loans are paid in monthly installments. You calculate your payment due, you make that payment for the life of the loan, and then you're done. That's most loans. Mortgages, typically, car loans, typically, student loans. You're making monthly payments, monthly installments. But some of these loans, actually, we don't need that. Some of these loans actually have what's called a lump sum payment. This is a loan where you borrow the money up front, and then at some time in the future, you're paying it all back with interest. Now, for something small, that's not a big deal. But I mean, can you imagine you take out a $300,000 mortgage And instead of making monthly payments, you're told, nope, 7 years from now, you're going to pay back the whole damn thing in one lump sum. You got to slow down on that. But you want to make sure that you know the payment arrangement. And then finally, all loans vary based on what we're going to call the term of the loan, how long the loan is for. Mortgages are often 30 years, sometimes 15 or 20 years. Student loans tend to have a loan term of 10 years. Car loans used to be 3, then they went to 5. Now some car loans are like 7 years. Furniture loans can sometimes be just 24 months, real short, but the length of the loan is there. Okay. These are all very important because here's the key. If you have an installment loan where you're making monthly payments, your monthly payment is going to be a factor of the loan size, how much money are you borrowing, the loan term, how long is the loan going to last, and the APR. What's your interest rate? These three factors, the size of the loan, the length of the loan, and the APR, are going to dictate your payment size per month. And this is important because, again, I won't draw the full thing, but you know where I'm going to go with this. Income can go to obligations, luxuries, or savings and investment. Those monthly payments are obligations. The bigger that payment goes, the less you have for luxuries, and you might even be starving out future you. Okay? The typical rule is when it comes to the loan size, the bigger the loan, the bigger the payment. The smaller the loan, the smaller the payment. That relationship also holds true with the APR, the interest rate. The higher the interest rate, the higher the loan payment. The lower the interest rate, the lower the loan payment. Loan term is where it gets interesting. With a loan like a home, the longer the loan term, the lower the monthly payment. So a 30-year mortgage will have a lower payment than a 15-year mortgage. And that should be intuitive because the longer the loan term, the more time periods, remember that's our N, the more time periods we're spreading the loan out across. The shorter the loan period, we're paying it off in less N, so the payment goes up. So be familiar. In our lecture, when we're together, I will take you step by step exactly how to calculate a payment. But for now, I just want to make sure that you understand how those payments work and what the ingredients are, okay? The last thing that I want to bring up in this is something very important. I want to talk about a term called loan amortization. Amortization is a really, really great concept to understand because it can help you in tremendous ways. First of all, what does it mean? Well, here's what it means. To keep this simple, we're going to assume, well, and this works in other cases, but we're going to assume that you have a loan with a fixed interest rate. So let's just say that you take out a $100,000 mortgage. It's a 30-year mortgage, and let's say that you have a 6% APR. Okay. You're going to calculate based on those factors what your monthly payment's going to be. I think, and I probably should have run this beforehand, but we'll do it in class. I think for this setup, I think your monthly payment might be $600. Let's just say it is. Okay. And if I'm wrong, we'll fix the numbers later. So here's how amortization works. You take out a 30-year loan. That's going to be 360 payments. Because remember, 30 years, 12 months per year. That means that Every month for 360 months, you're going to be paying $600. That's your payment. Paying off that mortgage. That's your payment. Almost there. Yay, you're mortgage free. Okay, $600 per month. So under amortization, and assume that the interest rate is fixed, let's do it again. Under amortization and assuming, I get excited, and assuming that your interest rate is fixed, your payment is going to be fixed. You're going to pay $600 a month for the entire length, the entire term of your loan. So far, so good. But here's what amortization also means. Within every payment you make, a part of the payment goes to repay the loan principal, the amount that you borrowed. Okay. In loan jargon, the amount that you borrowed is called your principal. The balance due on your loan, that's called your principal. Under the rules of amortization, your payments might be the same. Every payment is going to go partly to repaying the principal and partly to the interest payment. This is very important. We know when you borrow money, you got to pay it back plus interest. With an installment loan, what we call here an amortization loan, and these are student loans are amortization loans, car loans, mortgages, the major loans that you're going to take out will behave this way. The payment will be the same every month until you pay it off. But get this, every month, a little bit of that payment will go to the principal balance being paid back, and a little bit of that payment will go to the interest component. So every payment is split, is allocated between the principal balance repayment and the interest that you have to pay for the privilege of using someone else's money. You say, okay, Eric, so what's the big deal? Well, here's the big deal. Over time, the split changes. Over time, the allocation changes. This is a critical idea. What this means is early on in the loan, your payments are very much interest and very little principal. In other words, the opening years of a loan, the majority of your payment just goes to interest. It doesn't even reduce your loan balance. It does, but very small. Later on, later in the life of the loan, the same payment. Remember, the payment's not going to change. The payment's going to stay the same. But later in the life of the loan, as the loan grows older and you get deeper in the term, each payment has a very low interest component and a very high component that goes to the principal. I'll show you the numbers behind this when we're together, and it'll make a lot more sense, and it will lead to some stunning implications. Here's one implication to give you a teaser. I'll give you two. Implication number one, suppose that you took out a 30-year mortgage to buy your first house. How long do you think it will take you to pay off half the loan? Well, most people would say, Eric, that's easy. 30 is the term of the loan. 30 divided by 2 is 15. And they would say, Eric, in 15 years, I'll have half the loan paid off. No, you won't. Get this. It actually takes about 21 years to cut a 30-year mortgage in half. You think, how is that possible? How can you pay for 21 years and just barely chip away half of the balance of the loan? Well, because once again, early on in that loan, the bulk of your payment just goes to interest. It does not knock down the balance. So that's implication number one. Shocking. It's going to take you 21 years to cut a 30-year loan in half. Think, damn, that sucks. It does suck. But here's the other implication. If it takes you 21 years to reduce the first half of the loan, then it only takes you 9 years to kill off the last half of the loan. Because when you're later in the loan, more of your payment goes to principal and less to interest. As you get deeper into the loan, as you get deeper into the term, those last 9 years, the bulk of your payment that you send in goes to the principal to pay down the balance. In other words, where these types of loans, a lot of the interest is front loaded. Now, those are two important ideas. Let me give you one last little teaser and then I'll see you next time. What does this tell you? Well, I'm going to teach you when we're together and I can show you the numbers. I'm going to teach you a very simple strategy, a couple strategies that will allow you to take a 30-year loan and in a rather painless way, cut that thing down to 28 or maybe 26 or maybe even 25 years. Simple strategies that play on our knowledge of this that can help you to pay off a loan years early, that can help you pay off your mortgage years early. Why would you want to do that, you say? Well, we go back to our map. The sooner that you can pay off your mortgage, the sooner you have no more interest to pay. Your obligations go down, so you can spend more money on some luxuries, or you can save and invest a little bit more. Or what some people will do, they'll pay off their primary residence in 25 years, and then they'll immediately go out because they're already used to paying money every month, but now their mortgage is paid off. They'll go out and they'll buy a rental property. And now, as you get older, you get towards your retirement with your primary house paid off. So your net worth has gone up because your stock asset's worth more. That's your home. But then you take that freed up interest payment, that freed up cash flow, and you buy a rental property. And now you get the best of both worlds. You get your stock, right? Your house value goes up, and you've got a rental property generating cash flow. And that's not a bad way to enter retirement with a paid off primary house, a secondary investment generating monthly rental revenue. And again, because you played this map well, you've also got hopefully decades underneath you of contributing to your investment accounts, and you're looking good. And that's what I want for you. Don't just get by, do great. Don't just survive, thrive. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you, my friends, in our next video.